exchange. They preserve memory, amplify diverse voices, and create opportunities for us to better understand not only our history, but also one another. Today's symposium brings together the expertise and perspectives of the Institute of Jamaica's departments to explore how our work contributes to building inclusion, strengthening partnerships, and fostering peaceful and informed societies. Through today's presentations and discussions, we hope to deepen appreciation for the role of museums as catalysts for connection and positive change. We are especially proud to mark this year's observance of ICOM's 80th anniversary celebrations, reaffirming our shared commitment to safeguarding and sharing heritage for present and future generations. Thank you all for joining us. But also, I would like to give a special shout out to our partners that could not make it today and sent their apologies, which is the UWI Museum and the Devon House Museum, who had, as I said, previous commitments. But I'd like to thank the Bob Marley Museum, whose representatives will be attending today's event to show that we are fostering current and new relationships, again connected to the theme. So we encourage audience members to please, and the people online, to actively participate through thoughtful discussion and engagement throughout this 2-hour presentation. So it is now my official pleasure to declare the symposium open and welcome to all of us to have an inspiring day together. So thanks everyone, and because we have so many presentations, we're going to keep it moving. So today, as the program says, I'd like to welcome Mr. Stafford Brown, Research Officer of Liberty Hall. And again, PR has some flyers so people can know what all these divisions do. So welcome, Mr. Brown.
Sorry, thank you guys for coming, and I want to say Happy International Museums Day. I also want to do a special shout out to the International Council of Museums as they're celebrating their 80th anniversary. And as I was reflecting to start my presentation and wanted to find a theme that could have aligned also with the theme for this year, which focuses on museums united in a dividing world, which is very profound, because we've seen how culture shift and different as time progresses. Like time is not waiting on anybody, so we have to see how we can navigate through the space and also be that catalyst, move forward and get the information out there. I like to call museums basically guardians of history because they preserve so much and they teach a lot. So the theme for me, for my presentation here representing Marcus Mosiah Garvey Multimedia Museum, which is at the Liberty Hall Legacy of Marcus Garvey, is looking ahead, the future of cultural spaces. And while I was looking for this theme or trying to come up with something, I also wanted to make sure it was aligned with the Sustainable Development Goal, which is Sustainable Development Goal 10, 16, and 17, which all basically fosters inclusion. So before I start, I also wanted to find a statement that would resonate today with us and us as museum personnel or working in the museum space that could also push us, like after we finish this presentation and this session here, that we could be like leave with a renewed some form of spirit or some form of energy to keep on and continuing. So you could skip next slide. Somebody controlling the slide? Anyways, so I had this statement from Nina Simon. She's an exhibition and curator and museum director. She said, museums are not only places for learning, but also places for unlearning, challenging preconceptions, encouraging new perspectives, and fostering a deeper understanding of complex topics. Again, my name is Stafford Brown, and I'm the research officer here at Liberty Hall, the Legacy of Marcus Garvey. So, to begin, just an introduction of Liberty Hall, the Legacy of Marcus Garvey and its mission. So Liberty Hall, the Legacy of Marcus Garvey, its mission was developed to widely disseminate the philosophy and the opinion of Jamaica's first national hero, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. from his perspective and to use his philosophy and opinion to inspire, excite, and educate, positively affect the self-identity of Jamaican people while creating social and economic wealth. On October 20, 2003, the official opening of Liberty Hall, the legacy of Marcus Garvey, was held in front of hundreds of Jamaicans, and the ribbon was cut jointly by the Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister, Honorable P.J. Patterson, and the then late Prime Minister of the opposition at the time, Honorable Edward Seaga. So, in 2006, our museum, which is Marcus Mosiah Garvey Multimedia Museum, officially opened its doors to visitors. And since then, it has become the cultural education institution that serves the surrounding communities first and all others. From in conception, the museum took on a modern methodological approach, making the main teaching tool of Liberty Hall, or making it the main teaching tool of Liberty Hall, Legacy of Marcus Garvey. And in 2016, we've had a renovation. We underwent a significant renovation, transforming it into a high-tech cultural hub. The redesigned space features interactive touchscreens, exhibits, face morphing technology, and life-size graphics, all designed to make Garvey's philosophy more immersive and accessible for a modern audience. So, our museum holds a unique position in the global landscape, cultural landscape, because it's the only museum in the Western Hemisphere that's entirely dedicated to the life and philosophy of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. It's also the world's first museum to display Garvey's legacy through interactive touchscreens, technology allowing visitors to experience his life, his work, his movement, his philosophy through an immersive exhibition. And these are just some pictures just to show you guys inside. You'd have to go back a bit though. Show you guys inside of our museum and stuff. And the different sections, which we will get into this presentation. So, our museum serves as a cultural sovereign space that's dedicated to highlighting Black excellence and the philosophy of Marcus Garvey, as I said before. This focus is not rooted in exclusion, but rather target restoration of a history and identity that has been systematically marginalized. Since our inception, we have recorded over 40,000 plus visitors, with approximately 89% of our visitors being students. As I said, because we're an educational space, would attract more students, and we have like peak seasons where we have these numbers coming in and students coming in. Our museum and our outreach program, as we build connections across communities, here at Liberty Hall and our museum, the Marcus Mosiah Garvey Multimedia Museum, we have like various outreach programs that facilitate vital community connection that bridges the gap for our people, whether in close proximity or far away. Though these initiatives, we bring the philosophy and movement of Marcus Garvey direct to the schools, and through these initiatives, we bring them to the universities, to organizations, as far as golden age homes. Central to this effort is our mobile exhibition, where we utilize branded materials such as banners, artifacts, and publications to recreate more of an immersive experience or of persons being actually inside of a museum. Okay, 5 minutes, wow, that's crazy. But through the work of our Forge Connection, we partner with like-minded organizations. We've also fostered connections with the Repair Campaign, the Schomburg Center for Research and in Black Culture, the Marcus Garvey School Foundation, and this is just to name a few. And through a museum, we're able to forge these partnerships that directly support the museum or directly support the work of Liberty Hall Legacy of Marcus Garvey itself. The layout of our museum is basically a strategic one that's designed to bridge the gap between the different generations and learning styles. By utilizing advanced display systems and interactive technology, we engage younger and tech-savvy audiences who prefer having information at their fingertips, but conversely, we also engage our senior visitors who are more of a traditional experience through physical artifacts and comfortable theater section, which allows those who prefer reflection over digital navigation to engage deeply with documentary and films of Marcus Garvey depicting his legacy. So for us, we have 3 sections, and our 3 sections basically create a smoother visitor's experience, allowing for a better understanding of the philosophy of Garvey's work, life, and what the Marcus Mosiah Garvey Multimedia Museum does, we divide into 3 distinct sections. We have the African and the self-identity section. We have the middle section, which focuses on his activism and his work, and the different partners or players that make his philosophy come to life. Because as much as Garvey did a phenomenal work, he couldn't have done it without a lot of people. And our museum highlight that fact too, and the different, I'll call them the unsung heroes. We have the theater section, and in our theater section, it's, as I said, it's just a mixture of a theater, a cinematic experience for other visitors who predominantly may not want to interact with our kiosk systems because we have 12 digital screens, or those who might just want to sit down and immerse into that cultural or that film just to understand or be back into time of what Garvey promoted and his philosophy. I heard we have 5 minutes, so I'd have to like speed this up a bit as much as I want to get into it. So how we promote inclusive access to culture and knowledge is that through our sections, as I said before, we try our best to market it for the different visitors, taking into consideration the demographic, taking into consideration the background, and what that does is brings this cohesiveness where when you go into our museum, you actually get to see the space for more, as it says, a multimedia center, where if you don't want to interact with the kiosk systems, you can also look around on the artifacts. You can also walk around the museum that gives a chronological sequence of from Garvey's birth to his businesses to his roles, and what that does, it promotes some form of inclusion. So if you don't want to come to the museum and to maybe interact with a technological device, as I say, you could look at the different walls of graphics that depict certain stuff, the different highlights of his career that depict certain stuff too. And this is how we promote inclusive access to culture and knowledge. But what I really want to get into before I finish this presentation is how we engage present challenges faced by our institution. And I think all museums know, as we target or reach this cultural shift, has some of these challenges that I might highlight. So one could argue that museums are at a crossroads in their efforts to engage the public, particularly with the rise of artificial intelligence and the shift towards a more digitalized physical spaces. However, the challenges associated with this can range from mild to severe, and transitions are very extensive. But for us and for wider museums, for us at Liberty Hall, one of the problems that we might face is location and spatial concerns. As much as our downtown is under a regentrification process, where we are located, for better words, not the more welcoming part of downtown, where it's not closest, as I mean, to a waterfront where people can come and have access to different spaces or different business places near to them, and that can prove as a concern. We have a problem maintaining cultural relevance. There's a lot of visitors that come in doesn't really know at all who Marcus Garvey is, let alone if he was our first, second, third national hero. And sometimes it can be sad, but it's a shifting in culture because technology is becoming such fast-paced. The need for having these spaces sometimes can pose a challenge. Then one of the problems we face too is funding, because I think most museums have this problem too, funding from both private and public sector. Especially if you want funding from private sector, you would have to probably do like a pitch deck to tell them how this benefit them, how this benefit the wider community. And sometimes to me, I don't think it should be so, because as I said, museum are those cultural relics or guardians of history that tells a story before us and tells a story what happened before us. Engaging the younger generation to also poses a challenge, as I said. Sometimes interacting in the museum needs to have like a different perspective, and different perspective sometimes might mean for us to have a different shift towards it. And how we have a different shift towards it is also integrating with artificial intelligence. I keep telling people, AI is here to stay, and it's a trend that if you don't get onto, you might just be lost into it. The limited availability of physical artifacts. We have, knowing how powerful Marcus Garvey was actually, and is too today, we have some people that might have artifacts that may not want to give them away because, holding on to that value holding on to it can also increase the value. So we have a challenge where people could come in and give these artifacts freely, maybe for the good, but some people just don't want to do that. And that's a challenge that, we have to also accept. But still, with every challenge, don't be dismayed. There's always room for shifting. There's always room for improvement. There's always room for re-engaging, going back to the drawing board and come again. And how we do this, what's next? You can go to, what's next? So how we combat this? it can range from different problems. It can range from just having some more collaborative efforts, because as I say, as much as our museums are few here, there's more in numbers when we collaborate on certain stuff. For example, community-led creations, leveraging artificial intelligence. Again, as I said, I think I had a meeting earlier this year where they were talking about how to make digitalizing the Institute of Jamaica, I think including the museums and how we make it somewhat of a digital space. Collaborating with the local communities, social media marketing. Like it or not, social media marketing is still a 95% succession rate for companies, business, small, medium, or large enterprises. And museums are no different. Museums are, I could draw an example from the Bob Marley Museum. I think you guys have close to 500K followers. And then checking on your page is a lot of social media marketing where you guys push out and push out and push out and keep promoting and having Bob Marley in the spaces. So it's something for us too. We can piggyback on other museums that are doing great, and we can draw ideas from other museums, because there's actually no new ideas out there. It's just people taking advantage of them. So for museums to thrive in cultural spaces, and culture is also a shift in perspective, and culture can mean different to you, culture can mean different to me, but the one thing that remains with culture is that it's a shifting space where people can adapt to it, and a shifting space as in where people can also come on to it and benefit from it. So I believe what's next to combat this for museums is bringing museum also to the people. As I say, here at Liberty Hall, we have outreach programs, and how we do this, we facilitate this through our outreach programs. If they can't come to the space, we can come physically to the space to them, bringing that some form of experience or that immersion of a museum feel, where we bring our artifacts, we bring our books, the work that we've done, and just our banners, or branded material, just to give that form of space of a museum. So how we combat this, as I say, especially in a more emerging society, is coming together, fostering community engagement, leveraging artificial intelligence, piggybacking off ideas of other museums, because and that's not like form of cheating if you guys are putting it out there. It's just really piggybacking and drawing from ideas. Bringing museum to people, and a brand pivot. And a brand pivot can mean how you engage yourself on social media, how you market yourself, the perception that you have, and just finding new ways how to re-energize what the meaning and the importance of museums. So this ends my presentation. And one thing I want you guys to do for me, if you could scan here just to follow us at Liberty Hall, you would see our website or social platforms, just to give us a follow, a like. As I said, we're doing our work on the back end, which is getting more engagements and user engagement through social media. I hope you found this presentation lucrative, and thank you guys for listening. I know I'm beyond the time, so I'm going to make it quick. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, one of our newer, more energetic employees to the IOJ, unlike some of us older folks here. So we really appreciate that. So next on the program, we have Ms. Kesia Wees, Senior Research Fellow at the National Museum of Jamaica, National Museum Jamaica. So if everyone please welcome her on stage. After me just say, Mr. Brown, energetic, and you walk up like that?
The older ones. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to use this opportunity to really highlight the People's Museum, which, believe it or not, was once considered the most famous museum in Jamaica. I'm going to start off by looking at the location and history, and then move on to briefly look at ways the museum preserves and promotes cultural heritage, and I'll close with challenges and opportunities. Should be quite succinct. Location and history now. So we can move to the next slide, please. So this map, actually produced from a feasibility study for conservation and restoration of cultural heritage in Jamaica in the 1980s through a collaboration with UNDP and UNESCO. It shows clearly how the People's Museum is nestled in the heart of historic Spanish town, which was once known as Villa de la Vega, town in the plain under the Spanish rule. The Spanish had established their capital there after abandoning Seville, La Nueva, New Seville in St. Anne in 1534. And the location continued as the administrative seat of government under the English until 1872. Under the English, the major development of the town came at the height of the plantation era with the construction of a Georgian style square. And if you, while passing through the capital, observe the buildings, you will see the beautiful Georgian architecture all around. The old King's House building, which sits directly across from the old Assembly building, we can move to the next slide, all right, was completed in 1762 as the official residence of the Governor of Jamaica, and it was actually the first building to be erected in the square. And it continued to be used for that purpose until 1872 when the capital of Jamaica was transferred to Kingston. It was destroyed by fire in October 1925, and by 1958, plans for the redevelopment of the historic district began. It was here on the steps right there of the old King's House that the Emancipation Declaration was read on August 1, 1838, and in 1997 the area was renamed Emancipation Square by then Prime Minister P.J. Patterson. There were actually two museums in the old King's House complex. The Folk Museum, which opened on November 22, 1961. The other was the Old King's House Archaeological Museum, established in 1975, which told the story of the governor's residence up to 1872 through artifacts which were discovered in archaeological digs at the site and photographs of the house before the fire of 1925. The People's Museum is situated in the stables of the Old King's House complex, and this initiative was under Mr. Edward Siaga, then Minister of Development and Welfare. Funds for the redevelopment were as a result of public-private partnership. The museums were operated by the Institute of Jamaica through the Museums Division, later known as Museums of History and Ethnography, and today National Museum Jamaica, on a property that at the time the Jamaica National Heritage Trust had oversight of. The establishment of this museum was quite significant and had the potential to be quite revolutionary for the island. Museums in Jamaica and across the Caribbean in the 19th century had served to promote the colony's commercial and agricultural interest and stimulate investment. Centering for the first time the culture of the majority, giving them a voice by telling their story, was quite remarkable, especially considering that it was on the eve of political independence from Britain. However, the greater motive for the establishment of the museum was to satisfy a burgeoning tourist market excited by the otherness and perceived primitiveness of the masses. The collection and arrangement of the items on display were done by a group ranging from officials of government to historians such as S.A.G. Taylor and various other citizens who worked with a committee which was set up in 1959 by Governor Kenneth Blackburn. This committee had grown out of an earlier one established by Governor Hugh Foote in 1954. By 1979, perhaps influenced by the rise of the Black Power movement, the museum was redeveloped and renamed People's Museum of Craft and Technology. The narrative was fine-tuned so that it was a more authentic mouthpiece of our ancestors. Inclusion, diversity, visibility, and representations were not buzzwords at the time, but there was certainly an appreciation that in developing a national agenda, the story of the majority had to be better foregrounded in building national identity and pride. So this former colonial seat of power now houses a space that celebrates the innovation and self-sufficiency of our people. It chronicles the evolution of post-slavery society, showcasing the peasantry's way of life and recognizing their contribution to Jamaican nationhood and culture. This shift from colonial rule to people's empowerment is a powerful symbol of Jamaica's journey to independence, highlighting the island's growth into a cultural giant on the world stage. Can move to the next slide. The People's Museum showcases a rich collection of artifacts and exhibits that tell the story of Spanish Town and the creative industry of the emancipated people, as well as other ethnic groups who were brought as indentured servants and fashioned a life for themselves across the island. As a community space, the museum highlights the traditions that were part of the cultural landscape of Spanish Town. So for example, the African tradition of coiling and firing clay in open pit to produce functional pieces, saucers, pots, and even stoves, which was practiced by potters like Lucy Malu Jones, who lived in Spanish Town, was made a part of the narrative. This serves to connect the community with the museum as their skills, art, and technology are celebrated there. The contributions of other ethnic groups, such as the East Indians, were also woven into the narrative. While this group established communities across the island, their traditions are quite pronounced in St. Catherine, and even today the parish is foremost in the observation of Indian Arrival Day at Chedwin Park in the parish. Preserving culture means addressing conservation too. The conservation unit at the head office, here at head office, handles artifact conservation with curatorial assistance and museum attendance, getting basic training in minor conservation efforts. But with only one conservation officer, God bless her soul, building capacity at the People's Museum is crucial. Staff skills must be boosted to ensure these treasures last for generations. After all, it's about safeguarding our heritage, not just showcasing it. Next slide. All right, so the museum over the years designed various programs and activities to engage and involve local community as well as visitors outside of Spanish Town and overseas. Fees have been kept low, and this has been true not just for People's Museum, but government-funded museums across the island as a means of encouraging attendance. There has long been a recognition that the socioeconomic conditions of people affect their interest in such spaces as bread and butter issues loom larger. As such, summer programs were designed for children from surrounding communities and was funded through public-private partnerships. These summer programs included tours, dramatic productions, games, tours of the exhibition, and even exposed children to basic knowledge about artifact preservation to encourage them to develop an appreciation for the work of the museum, which is situated in their community. Free workshops and lectures on topics such as traditional crafts, storytelling, and so on, provide a platform for skill sharing and cultural exchange. These initiatives help to foster a sense of ownership and belonging among community members, promoting social cohesion and unity. Workshops were usually extended to not only Spanish Town residents, but to other parishes, as far as St. James. One of the most successful workshop initiatives was Waning Skills Program in 2011. It was presented in November 2010, conceived and organized by Museums of History and Ethnography and the IOJ Outreach Committee. The inaugural event was funded by the IOJ and staged right here in the lecture hall. However, for the second event, funding was sought from the Inter-American Development Bank Cultural Development Program for the event to be held at People's Museum in celebration of the museum's 50th anniversary and as a way of securing funding to carry out well-needed upgrading and revitalization work. Regular outreach activities bring the museum to schools and community groups within and outside of the parish of St. Catherine. These are carried out at no cost, at least to the schools. The museum also sought to spread awareness by collaborating with places like Serenity Park, which offered free packages at the time to visitors that included a tour of People's Museum. Now, in looking at challenges and opportunities, I can say that despite the successes of the People's Museum, it continues to face myriad of challenges that at one time even forced the closure of the museum. One of them is location. Location becomes problematic when there is a flare-up of violence in the area. Modern political violence in Spanish Town began from the 1960s, which really spans the lifetime of the museum. And the two competing gangs, which traditionally are aligned to the two major political parties, developed into independent criminal syndicates and unfortunately operate in communities in and around the museum. While the museum and other cultural spaces, thankfully, have not been touched by either group, the violent upheavals from time to time keep visitors away, discourage persons from wanting to work at that location, and of course affect the mental well-being of staff. Despite security concerns from time to time, however, the limited funding and resource constraints has been one of the principal issues that has stymied conservation efforts, the more frequent revitalization of the exhibition, and thwarted the continuation of successful workshop initiatives of the past. However, these challenges present opportunities for growth and collaboration. By forging partnerships with local organizations and stakeholders, the museum can leverage support and expertise to enhance its offerings and reach a broader audience. Greater efforts, therefore, have to be made to engage new partners to meet some of the needs. This is more challenging nowadays given the competition in the culture sector for the same pool of funds and the shrinking offerings by some funders. There's a growing number of NGOs also, and they're more likely sometimes to bag the funding parts quicker than government-funded institutions. Some of the needs of People's Museum are the ceiling of windows featuring decorative blocks and the installation of air conditioning units to improve temperature regulation in the museum space. Interactive displays are needed to transform passive viewing into active multisensory experiences to cater for diverse learning styles of visitors of all ages and backgrounds. Improving the grounds of the museum with the introduction of plants and herbs and interpretive captions that help to connect them to the narrative in the museum. There is need to better utilize the grounds and even make it a space that can generate income for the museum. Maintaining outreach program offered to schools and community groups are quite a challenge also, with contraction of traveling budget and the increase in cost of petrol and the cost of maintaining vehicles. Point of sale systems are needed to streamline admissions and ticketing and offer an alternative to just paying cash. There's need to expand the digital capacity of the NMG to safeguard the digitized collection and the expansion of the conservation unit here at NMG to better equip and meet the conservation needs of all museums under its purview. While funding will solve some of these issues, along with others not shared here, attitude of museum staff have sometimes thwarted progress, and to address this, reorganization of job descriptions and capacity building exercises have been employed in the past, and these strategies are still relevant today to help to change attitudes. Some persons, are resistant to change. The other issues that are not as easy to address are bureaucratic and governmental attitudes. In wrapping up, I'll reiterate that People's Museum is an example of cultural preservation and promotion that brings people together through Jamaican history and heritage. By engaging communities in various ways, it has bridged divides in small but meaningful ways and celebrates our museum spaces into the digital age, which we're already in. We need commitment to proper resourcing. It's time for action, not more plans that will sit in drawers to collect dust. The museums have the potential to generate revenue, but significant investment is required. Let's fund true development and stop giving lip service. The museums are ready for overhaul, but they need backing to enhance their role as a unifying force. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wees. And before we move on to the next presentation, I would like to acknowledge Dr. Kurt Henry, Director of the ACIJ JMB, and Mrs. Boucher, the Director of the Programs Division. And it would be remiss of me as a Catholic, just in case I have to confess, to introduce my Archbishop, Kenneth Richards. And again, I don't know if they were in here, to big up again Bob Marley Museum for coming. Again, we appreciate the support from everybody. So we would like to now move on to Joel Salke, Conservator, National Gallery, Jamaica.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'd like to echo the sentiments, happy International Museums Day. Welcome, everyone, for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to be here to participate. So, my name is Joel Salke, as mentioned before. I'm the conservator at the National Gallery of Jamaica. And for this International Museums Day Symposium, I'll be focusing on the theme and topic, building cultural connections in museum context. So I'll like to cover three main methodologies that the NGJ uses, why these methodologies matter, and conclude with our future directions. All right, so next slide. So the role of the museum has evolved significantly. Today, it no longer functions as an isolated, purely authoritative institution, but as an active participant in global conversations surrounding identity, heritage, memory, and belonging. They increasingly serve as spaces for cultural diplomacy, dialogue, reconciliation, knowledge exchange, and shared stewardship. Forgive my lisp. In keeping with this year's theme, museums in a fragmented world have the ability to build connections across geography, language, politics, diaspora identities, and colonial histories. The work of the NGJ demonstrates how a Caribbean institution can participate meaningfully in the international cultural networks while remaining deeply grounded in its local context. So, how do we do this? Through institutional partnerships and exchanges, the National Gallery of Jamaica facilitates the movement and accessibility of culture, increasing the visibility of Jamaican art while creating opportunities for reciprocal cultural exchange. These collaborations diversify our audiences, encourage cross-cultural understanding, and position Jamaican and Caribbean narratives within the broader global art histories. So the NGJ advances its work through three primary areas, the first being inter-museum loans, traveling exhibitions, and curatorial and professional exchange. So through inter-museum loans, the NGJ facilitates both incoming and outgoing loans with local and international museums and exhibitions, encouraging shared stewardship of cultural heritage while expanding international visibility for Jamaican art and showcasing art from other countries in Jamaica. Recent examples of which include the participation at the 60th International Art Exhibition of La Biennale de Venecia in 2024, and Flight into Egypt, Black Artists in Ancient Egypt, 1876 to now, at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, an exhibition that ran from 2024 to 2025. So, established in 1895, the Venice Biennial remains one of the world's most prestigious international art exhibitions. The 2024 exhibition, and pardon me, please, I'm not gonna try and trip over my tongue here. It's Italian, not one of my strongest strengths. Stranier ovunque, which essentially translates to foreigners everywhere, curated by Adriano Pedrosa, explored themes of migration, displacement, and identity. Our inclusion, don't worry. Our inclusion in this exhibition reflects both the strength of Jamaican artistic practice and the NGJ's ongoing commitment to the promotion of Jamaican art and culture internationally. This collaboration was made possible through our partnership or our participation in the Afro-Atlantic Histories exhibition, of which Adriano Pedrosa was a curator. Our contribution to the Flight into Egypt exhibition through the facilitation of Tasset, a 1935 sculpture by Ronald Moody, has also led to bigger developments, which I will expound upon later in this presentation. And for those of us who are not familiar, Ronald Moody remains one of our critically unacclaimed Jamaican sculptors. So secondly, we're moving on to traveling exhibitions. Traveling exhibitions is another way in which the NGJ extends beyond its national borders while functioning as an important educational and cultural exchange tool. Major examples include the Afro-Atlantic Histories, as previously mentioned, our Jamaica exhibition, well, not really ours, but the Jamaica exhibition, the John Dunkley Neither Night Nor Day exhibition. So I'll focus a little bit more on Jamaica. One noticeable example, Jamaica, how Jamaican music conquered the world. It explored Jamaica's global music influence and the international impact of reggae and related genres. And it was originally presented at the Philharmonie de Paris in 2017 under the title Jamaica, exclamation mark. The exhibition was later adapted for its Jamaica presentation at the NGJ in 2020. This exhibition highlighted Kingston's role as a birthplace of multiple musical genres and reflected the city's designation as a UNESCO UNESCO Cities Network Creative City in 2015. Through exhibitions such as these, the NGJ continues to broader conversations surrounding Caribbean cultural production and its global significance. And thirdly, curatorial and professional exchange. Curatorial and professional exchange also creates opportunities for knowledge sharing, institutional growth, and professional development. These engagements strengthen the NGJ's internal capacity while fostering international dialogue and collaboration among museum professionals, scholars, artists, and cultural professionals. One example includes senior curator Monique Barnett-Davidson accompanying works from the NGJ collection to the Netherlands for an exhibition titled Who More Sci-Fi Than Us at the Kunstthal Kade. And her expertise and knowledge of Ebony Patterson's The Real Big Man in 2010 supported the presentation of the work within a broader dialogue of contemporary Caribbean practice. Similarly, Chief Curator O'Neill Lawrence traveled to Berlin to assist with the installation of the NGJ works loaned to the exhibition. Oops, I am forgetting a page, but that's okay. The O Quilomboso, exhibition, forgive me about that. During the program, he participated in the panel discussion, Submersive Bodies in Conversation, Bodies as Joy Fields, Bodies as Battlefields, alongside artists Bruno Zhu and Grada Quilombo, curated by curators Cosmin Costinas and Rosa Cordillera Castillo. He also contributed to the O Quilombismo reader and participated in its launch discussion with contributors Barrett Macaulay, Eliza Larkin Nascimento, and editor Eric Otinio Sumba. Right, so that's what we're seeing on the screen. These engages ensure that Jamaica and Caribbean perspectives remain active within the international museum and curatorial discourse. So our international engagement at the NGJ extends beyond institutional partnerships to direct engagements between people across borders. Through exhibitions, open calls, artist participation, and collaborative programming, the gallery creates opportunities for dialogue between regional diasporic communities. Open calls and internal submission or international submissions, such as the One Nation New Symbols exhibition, which closed recently, encourage members of the Jamaican diaspora to engage in conversations surrounding cultural identity, unity, and belonging. Works such as Stephanie Brown's installation titled Bunononos explores themes of memory, tradition, nostalgia, demonstrating how diaspora engagement is simply about inclusion, or not simply about inclusion, but recognition that Jamaican culture itself is inherently transnational. These exchanges create meaningful connections between diasporic artists and local creative communities while enforcing broader Caribbean interconnectedness. Right? Exhibitions such as the Kingston Biennial also invite international and diaspora curators to engage with local histories and representation. One example is diaspora curator Dr. Ashley James and her engagement with An Eye for the Tropics within the Green X Gold Kingston Biennial 2024 framework. For those of us who know, seminal work by Dr. Krista Thompson. International embassies and cultural missions have also played a supporting role to these exchanges through exhibitions and collaborative programming. Partnerships with institutions such as the Japanese Embassy and their 2024 traveling exhibition, Japan x Jamaica International Photo Exhibition, Photo One Love, and the Dominican Republic Embassy, The World Upside Down, Images of Dominican Carnival, and Overlapping in 2024, reflect the role of art and culture within a broader diplomatic relationship and continued international cooperation. So why this collaboration matters? These exchanges both matter institutionally, well, they matter institutionally, socially, and sectorally. International collaboration strengthens the credibility and the visibility of the institutions while amplifying Jamaican voices within global curatorial conversations. This visibility can create opportunities for funding, research, training, and broader research development, ultimately strengthening institutional capacity. At the same time, collaboration allows museums to challenge stereotypes, insularity, monologue culture, and knowledge hoarding. In this way, museums have to move beyond functioning socially as repositories of objects and become active spaces of curatorial relationships and exchange. So the NGJ continues to expand its regional and international networks through collaborative initiatives, professional exchange, and educational programming. Programs such as Ask a Conservator Day and regional conservation workshops have strengthened connections with institutions such as NALIS, the National Library and Information System Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. Discussions between NALIS Library Conservator and Head of Conservation and Preservation, Daniel Fraser, and NGJ's Conservator, myself, Joel Salke, have explored shared regional conservation challenges and opportunities for future collaboration. Our participation into Flight into Egypt also created opportunities for further collaboration surrounding the work of Ronald Moody, including developmental partnerships with the Hepworth Wakefield Museum that has the potential to contribute to additional scholarship and resources to the institution on the famous artist. Youth programs such as Saturday Art Time, Rightivity, and collaborations with Rubis Energy, Impulse Jamaica Project, have also provided opportunities for creative engagement and art education and skills development for younger audiences, which we critically need. These programs help foster lasting connections between the youth, art, and the museum as an accessible cultural space. So to conclude, the NGJ's international engagement demonstrates that museums can connect communities, bridge cultures, foster dialogue, preserve shared heritage, and create spaces of belonging across borders. In an increasingly divided world, museums remain important spaces for exchange, understanding, and collective cultural memory. And through its partnership and programs, the NGJ continues to position itself as both locally grounded and internationally engaged. Thank you.
Before we move on to the next presenter, I would just like to make an apology for Mr. Romain Thomas, who is next. He had a family emergency and had to leave. But before we move on to Mr. John Shorter, Curatorial Assistant at NMJ, I would like to acknowledge the distinguished gentleman, Mr. Peter Espute. And before I lose my work, I would also like to introduce my Executive Director, Mrs. Michelle Creed-Nelson. I do not understand how I missed her, even though we both got the memo to wear pink. I apologize, ma'am. Please forgive me. And hopefully my appraisal will pass. So again, please welcome Mr. John Shorter for his presentation. Thank you.
Hi, so good morning, everybody. All right, so happy International Museum Day. My name is John. So we're going to be talking about some of the practices that museum tour guides, some of the best practices that museum tour guides should be engaging in when interacting with the public. So this is an important topic to consider on a day like this because, you know, with the way that the institution functions, a tour guide or a curatorial assistant is basically the main cultural interlocutor between any kind of exhibition in a museum or gallery space and the public visitors that we invite to view the space. We're usually the human translators and, you know, active listeners and storytellers that bring these narratives out of the objects and into the conversational and dialogue space. And so I think that, you know, having some grasp on what it means to be a tour guide and some of the best curatorial practices will go a long way in ensuring that the museum and galleries and other such cultural institutions continue to function and educate and really bridge the sort of gaps that we've been talking about all morning. So as you can see by introduction, I took a quote from the Tips for Museum Docents and Tour Guides from the Smithsonian. And basically, effective museum tour guides create memorable experiences by focusing on storytelling, interaction, and audience engagement, rather than just lecturing on facts. Their practices include tailoring content to the audience, using open-ended questions to foster discussion, using storytelling to bring objects to life, and maintaining a welcoming and accessible environment. All of this to say is that when visitors come inside of a museum and they are being guided through the space by a tour guide, it is essentially our job to bring that space to life for them, to listen to their questions, to create a very accessible environment based on any sort of preferences or disabilities, and to, again, be the interlocutor, be that bridge between the objects and the sort of narrative dialogue that's been communicated within the exhibition space. Next slide, please. So the use of engaging techniques can include telling stories, don't list facts, weave narratives around the objects, focusing on the people who use them, the artists who made them, or the history behind them. People aren't coming into a museum just to have you point at something and say what this is. I'm sure they can get that on the internet. Ask open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are key for the museum experiences, in my humble opinion, because they encourage dialogue with questions like, what do you see here? Or how does this painting make you feel, instead of a simple yes or no question? Again, acting as that interlocutor, you're engaging with the visitor, who is then engaging with the object, with the painting, with the artifact, with whatever it is on display. And then using interactive methods, which could be as simple as asking, what do you think this object was used for? or tools like, tablets or screens or other digital devices that can display another dimensional framework within this conversation. So again, using the mode of conversation to lift the engagement from just the surface level of the object into that conversational space. And then lastly, to connect to personal memories. A lot of what draws people to museums are their own experiences, right? People come to museums on pilgrimages, people visit museums to remember the Holocaust, people visit museums on different holidays, people visit museums for, remembering certain cultural and personal milestones. And it is very, very important, in my opinion, to relate that, to connect that with the visitor. We have for example, an exhibition at NMJ right now, Narratives of Migration, that is very much rooted in the experiences of the Windrush generation. And people do come into that space, being related to, being the child of, or the grandchild of someone that went over on that ship, and, baking in those memories into the exhibition experience and the tour guide experience really does go a long way in cementing that cultural connection and ensuring that person leaves with, a very valuable experience. Next slide. So structuring the tour and managing the tour. I think I'll stand on this side, is that okay? Right, so setting expectations, introduce yourselves, just like I did. Hi, I'm John. And using your background, to really ground the tour's theme. I have a double major in history and archaeology, and people really do appreciate asking an archaeologist, what I think about certain topics, be it, an article they may have read just before coming to the museum, or an article that has inspired them to come to the museum in the first place, right? And this doesn't mean you need to be giving like your own personal information, but do ground the visitor into your role in the space. Hi, I'm a curator or an archaeologist. You're giving them, your credibility, and they're showing that your sort of take on this stuff can be trusted and can be very useful in them understanding the space. Limiting your stops, so focusing on very few items in depth rather than trying to cover the entire museum or the entire exhibition that does overwhelm visitors. I find that it is quite it's much more effective to have people browse for a few seconds and then have them pick out what objects they would like to have more explanation on, if you get what I'm saying, right? Instead of bombarding them with all of this information wholesale. And so use proper positioning, just like I did. So ensure you're visible to all. According to the British Museum's Guide for Tour Visitors, do not block other visitors and stay aware of your group size and comfort level. Don't drone on, inconsistently, and always answer the questions that are actually being asked, right? People come to the space, they can look up a lot of stuff online. They can probably look up the entire exhibition online, but they want to talk to you as the curator, as the tour guide, again, as this cultural interlocutor. Engage with their specific questions, their specific concerns, and again, that goes a long way in enhancing the museum experience. And handle I don't knows very gracefully. It's okay not to know everything. You're not a walking encyclopedia. That actually happened to be on a couple of my first tours, actually. And I do give the people a disclaimer. I am an archaeologist. That means I have a length and breadth of expertise and information within a particular field. Doesn't mean I can't answer your questions, but even I have my blind spots. It just means you're human, and people do appreciate that. So next slide. And so safety and etiquette. So respect conversation rules. Remind guests not to touch objects unless authorized. Again, respect people's pauses. Don't try to fill the air with needless talking. Again, establish a touch and go sort of conversational flow with the guest. Don't let them overwhelm you, but don't overwhelm them as well. Again, keep it polite, keep it respectful, and keep it on point. There's also this note on physical safety. Alert the group to, overhangs, uneven floors, slippery surfaces, all of these little things that could be happening throughout the space that you as a tour guide should know about ahead of time. People really do appreciate being told all of this before they start walking around. And be mindful of others. Again, we don't really do this here at the IOJ using megaphones and loudspeakers according to the British Museum, but of course, this goes to, phones and devices and things like that. Reminding people to keep, especially if they're in large groups and groups of strangers, so it's not like a family or like a school group, right? It's like a group of people that you're having to tour together. Everybody has their phones on silent. They're not answering calls in the space, not talking too loudly, and again, not overriding you as a tour guide and interrupting other people when they might have questions to ask, right? Next slide. And then there's preparation and passion. So be passionate and authentic. Share what you love about the collection or the exhibition. Enthusiasm is incredibly contagious. Even if it's an exhibition that you didn't curate yourself, walk around, engage with the information, show people that you can be trusted to guide them through this space. And people do like to see, a bright, inviting personality whenever they walk into, any sort of cultural space. Practice active listening, so engaging with visitors' comments and allow for silence, like I said before, to give people time to think, to digest, to internalize these things, and prepare for diverse audiences. So always tailor your language, your register, the kinds of details and information you would share based on the background of your audience. So if it's students below a certain age group, keep it PG-13 or PG. If it's adults or experts in their own field, then you can probably bake in a lot more of that academic jargon or show a lot more of your own expertise. But again, it's always to tailor the information and the experience to the visitor and their questions. Again, acting as that physical and dialogue interlocutor between yourself and the audience. And I think, next slide. And I think that's it for me, actually. So thank you so much for listening. If you would like more information on where I compiled this list of tips, I did leave a lot of the source information in the slide, but also you could just shoot me an email. And like I said, happy Museum Day, everybody.
Thank you, John. Just like to make an apology, there had been some other changes in the program, but I sent the wrong one to be printed, so mea culpa. So Chelsea Stevenson is next, but she's a research officer of the African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica, Jamaica Memory Bank, ACIJ JMB. It is very important that we get our division names correct in these public settings. So I apologize, that was my mistake. But before Chelsea, or while Chelsea walks up, I would like to acknowledge the presence of our Director of HR, Mrs. Grace Magnus Fraser, and the Director of the Natural History Museum, Mrs. Tracy Comock. So thank you as well for being here. So Ms. Chelsea Stevenson, you're up, ma'am.
Morning, everyone. My name is Chelsea. I'm a research officer at the ACIJ JMB. And today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the ACIJ JMB and our role as custodians of Caribbean culture. The word custodian here is very important because we collect, but we don't just keep it there, we disseminate, which is very apt for today's Museums Day theme. Next slide, please. Okay, so today I want to share with you the story of the ACIJ JMB, two institutions united under one singular mission to collect, preserve, and breathe life into the cultural memory of Jamaica and the wider Caribbean. We are indeed custodians of Caribbean culture, and today I want to show you exactly what that means. This year's International Museums Day theme, Museums Uniting in a Divided World, cannot speak more to the work of the ACIJ JMB. William G. Demas, the first Secretary General of CARICOM, said it best: we cannot create a new society unless we know where we come from, and we cannot know who we are unless we know where we come from. Oh, Okay. That is precisely our mandate. Heritage is not merely a record of the past. Cultural identity fosters pride, belonging, and social cohesion. And museums, at their best, bridge the divide of history by making our shared stories visible and accessible. I would just like to interject here that the African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica, Jamaica Memory Bank, is not a museum in the traditional sense. We are, however, a cultural repository which goes hand in hand with museology. Next slide. No, go back, sorry. All right. So the ACIJ-JMB did not emerge in a vacuum. It was born out of a Caribbean-wide awakening to African identity and cultural pride in the 1960s and 70s. Now, being a British colony, Jamaicans did not have much interaction with their African roots, and the ACIJ-JMB was founded to combat that. Documentation of Jamaica's cultural forms, folk practices, and oral traditions began as early as the 1960s. Figures like Olive Lewin were especially integral in that charge. In 1972, the African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica was formally established as a division of the Institute of Jamaica, mandated to deepen public awareness of African cultural retentions and its diaspora connections. One of our first diasporic connections was actually a workshop done with Makonda carvers from Tanzania in the early 1970s. Then in 1980, the Jamaica Memory Bank was founded as an independent agency. Its primary mission to capture the oral histories of senior citizens across the island before their memories were lost forever, something that we still do today. In 1990, the two institutions were merged, combining research, audiovisual documentation, and oral history into a single powerful mandate. This matters why? Because it tells us that this institution was not created by accident. It was created as a conscious act of policy to fill a gap that independence alone could not close. The mandate of the ACIJ-JMB can be summed up in 4 words: collect, research, document, and disseminate. We collect and preserve audiovisual recordings, photograph, cassette tapes, and oral histories that capture Jamaica's living cultural memory. You can change the slide, sorry, Jeff. We research and document traditional dance forms, languages, music, religion, food, herbal medicine, festivals, and community histories. We engage communities, interviewing senior citizens to preserve unrecorded social history and training community groups to build local archives so that preservation happens at the grassroots level. And we disseminate widely through exhibitions, lectures, seminars, and increasingly through digital platforms, including YouTube and other social media, bringing Caribbean heritage to global audiences. Next. The breadth of what we document is remarkable. Our work spans traditional and popular music, traditional dance forms, herbal medicine and food practices, languages and oral traditions, folk religions and spirituality, community and social histories, festivals and cultural events, and social movements. So any aspect, even though, disclaimer, even though our name is African Caribbean, we interact with all cultures and ethnicities that reside within Jamaica and the broader Caribbean. So the Chinese, the Indian, the Syrian, in terms of religious groups, revival, in terms of cultural practices, we do Kumina, Rastafari, pretty much everyone. And that is important. We do not preserve the past as a relic under glass. We preserve it as something living, something that shapes who Jamaicans are today and who they will become. All right. So, to give you a sense of what we have at the ACIJ-JMB, and there's a plus beside a lot of these figures because it's a lot. The ACIJ-JMB archives over 2,200 audio cassette tapes, each averaging 1.5 hours recorded material. There are over 746 video cassettes, and this even though we have them there, this number grows every day. with an average of 2 hours of footage each. And what you'll find is in the times when, between the 1970s and up to when technology became digital, well, like born digital technology, as opposed to analog, you'll find that you will have one interview on 5 tapes. So that's how long they would run. We collected over 1,500 songs, so those are folk songs only across the island, and our photographic collection stands over 10,000 analog images. So that's just photographs. Oops. That's just photographs. That doesn't include what's been born digital over the last 10 to 15 years, covering virtually every aspect of Jamaican cultural life. The Gleaner reported in 1986 that this archive was the most extensive in the Caribbean, a valuable resource for North American and European scholars. That assessment still holds true today, as we have built not just a Jamaican treasure, but a Caribbean and global one. And we get visitors, researchers, those who are, we've had resident researchers over the last, well, I can speak to the last 8 years. We have researchers who come from all over the world, filmmakers, to access our archive. Next. All right. The Jamaica Memory Bank did not stop at Jamaica's borders. The model that began here, the practice of sitting with elders and recording their voices, proved so powerful that it spread across the region. Memory banks modeled on the JMB are now established in Grenada, Dominica, Guyana, and the Cayman Islands. One idea born in Jamaica now lives in 5 Caribbean nations. That is what it means to be a regional institution. That is what it means to truly unite a Caribbean that has, for too long, been divided by colonial history, geography, and circumstance. Next. Jamaica's motto, out of many one's people, speaks to our diversity. But when the JMB was founded, many Jamaicans, particularly those of African ancestry, grappled with the identity gap. Oh, wait, pause. Oh, no, that's not the video, sorry. Grappled with the identity gap that the motto alone could not fill. They knew little of their origins and lacked documentation of the cultural heritage. The ACIJ-JMB was created to close that gap, but our mission was never exclusive. We document not only African heritage, but Indian traditions, Chinese culture, European influences, Maroon communities, and the legacy of the Taino people. Up to last year, we went to document the Indian Arrival Day. We've had an exhibition on the Chinese culture in Jamaica. We have varying exhibitions on African culture in Jamaica, both pre and post-emancipation, because little known or common misconception, not all Africans in Jamaica came through enslavement. Every community, every stop, every voice preserved for Jamaica and the Caribbean. In this way, the ACIJ-JMB itself is the embodiment of the theme of this symposium, museums uniting a diverse people through shared stories and memory. Next. All right, so we've had challenges like most cultural institutions that are too many to name, but here I have a few. Of course, as I stated, we started in the 1970s before there were digital mediums, so a lot of our tapes, as I stated, are physical and they're at hazard, and even some are of physical deterioration. Another drawback of having physical is the obsolete technology and the inaccessibility, as in we unfortunately are not able to provide online services for our clients to access our archive, so most times they have to come in person, and that can be a limitation. However, digitization is the solution. We have long-term preservation, which we have already started our digitization efforts, but when you think of the amount of tapes that we have there and we only have one person, let me stress, we only have one person who is in charge of digitization, it's gonna take a real long time. Wider access, digital formats allow researchers, educators, and public to engage, and cultural continuity, of course. Museum spaces, repository spaces are not just for the past, but we love to engage those in the future. Next. Jeff. There we go. All right, so I have a few examples here of the work that we do in the field. And the first picture over this side is one of our research officers interviewing the daughter of Adoma. She's a daughter of a Kumina Queen, Bernice. And then in the middle, we have a video of a Kumina, and that is a goat sacrifice, one of my personal favorite videos. I just love seeing it. Whoa. The video to the far right, the video to the far right is actually me a few years ago documenting a conference in Moortown, the Moortown Maroon Conference. That is the Sunday before Nanny Day, which is the Monday. So the bottom right hand now, we have Kumina Queenie, Imogen Kennedy, and she's actually speaking. She's speaking. The name of the language eludes me, but she's speaking. And then to the far right now, we have actually a clip from a Etu ceremony, which is, yeah, my brain is short. It's Alexis and have me under pressure, guys. But I just wanted to show you some examples of the videos that we have in our archives. Next. All right, so dissemination in the digital age. Because of COVID-19, all of us as cultural repositories realized that we really did need to move away from more physical space and join the digital age. So we have our YouTube channel, which is one of my pet projects. We have online seminars, curating culture every first Thursday of the month. Please tune in. Cultural documentaries. One of our most viewed videos right now on YouTube is What is Revival? I'm sure it's near to 50,000 views. Please watch it. And archival footage made available to global audiences. Lectures by researchers and practitioners extend the institution's reach, just like this presentation that I'm doing right here. And or researchers, other members of staff go internationally and present about our work. Online seminars and webinars. Instead of just having physical seminars and webinars and presentations, we do live stream. Every event that we have at ACIJ is live streamed. Our space is very small, so to extend our reach, we live stream. We have a reference library, and we also have exhibitions, even though I said we are not formally a library, museum space. However, as a way to disseminate our work, we do exhibitions. We have digital archive access. We have access to digital archives. We have created a Caribbean network, partnerships with other countries in the Caribbean and Latin America. I can name off the top of my head. We partner greatly with the Colombian Embassy here in Jamaica. And then social media, audio from the archives, new interview recordings, and engaging social media content are shared on various platforms to engage with younger audiences. I don't have a QR code, but you can follow us at ACIJJMB. It's real easy to understand. And thank you very much.
I would first like to make a disclaimer that sometimes my name is a little too easy to be called, and I am blamed for things that I have no knowledge of. But also, I had already said that I need to make sure that we say our division names properly, and I was verbally draped up a while ago that I mistakenly said the Natural History Museum and not the Natural History Museum of Jamaica, their full and proper name. So apologies, Mrs. Kamak. Who do you think? As we say in the Caribbean, use my mouth and point. Okay, thank you. And also just to say, not everyone at IOJ likes to watch murder goat videos. That is just Chelsea, okay? We only like to eat goat, not watch the process of how we get curry goat. So just to introduce our only double act today from the program's coordination division, we have Miss Denise Lloyd and Mrs. Chantel Banbury Hutchinson. That was another error on the program. So while they're walking up, I would just like to acknowledge because again, I don't want anybody calling my name later. The director of the National Gallery, Dr. Nadine Boothgooden, thank you so much for coming. Yes, you same one over there, so please welcome the Programs Coordination Division, everyone.
Okay, good afternoon. Is it afternoon or morning? Oh, my stomach is telling me otherwise. Okay, all right, so my name is Denise Lloyd. I am the research officer at the Programs Coordination Division. So today we will be looking at Young Voices, Shared Spaces, the Programs Coordination Division uniting communities through culture. Okay, so the Programs Coordination Division operates through 3 dynamic spaces, and these are the East Street Junior Center, the Greater Portmore Junior Center, and the Simon Bolivar Cultural Center. Now, together, these 3 centers serve a creative hub where culture is not only preserved, but also actively lived, shared, and reimagined through the engagement of children, youth, and our wider community. So we're not only, we don't only have a strong focus on sustaining Jamaica's culture, but creating connections with regional and global cultures, particularly through our Simon Bolivar Cultural Center. All right, next slide, please. All right, so I guess there's no audio, but as you can see, all right, great, thank you. So these are just some of the programs that we offer at the junior centers. All right, so at the heart of our work is a commitment to building connections across communities and generations. Through our after-school and Saturday programs, we engage children, youth, and adults in dance, speech and drama, puppetry, music, visual arts, digital skills. Did I miss out drumming? Yes, drumming. And this engagement is further extended through our performing and visual arts summer school engagement. This is where we see an intensive and immersive space for creative development, and it broadens access to arts, education during the summer period. So we also cater to our senior citizens, or we're planning on doing so. So this is a program that we have coming up. It's called the Golden Expression Program. All right, so we must be wondering what that is. Now, this is a program that we want to implement at the Greater Portmore Junior Center, which brings seniors into the creative space, fostering some connections, wellness, and continued learning. So we will be encouraging our seniors to come in and get engaged in our art programs. Okay, so the Heroes for Children project, this was established in 2011. Now, this is a key initiative that builds connection across generations by encouraging students at the IOJ junior centers to positively engage and support children in state care. So this program basically fosters empathy, social responsibility, and meaningful interaction between young people and vulnerable children. Now we're moving on to the other slide. So we promote inclusive We promote inclusive access to culture and knowledge by keeping program more affordable. So for our after-school program, it's like $500 for our little ones to engage, right? And there is a video playing in the background. You'll see all of these programs that we offer at the Junior Center. This is our Greater Portmore Junior Center Jamaica Day. We're interacting with our parents, our community, our children, everyone. So that's an image of our children engaging in summer school program, and the one before is sign language. This is our annual program called the Hush Children Symposium. So the Hush Symposium, though, it provides accessibility supports such as sign language interpretation for deaf participants. And our after-school program also includes children with autism and other developmental challenges using art-based activities supported by research from Wei, Lee, and Ho 2025, which shows that, music, drama, visual arts supports self-expression and skill development in young people with ASD. Next slide, please. So here we see more details on our Hush Symposium. So our work also encouraged dialogue, mutual understanding, and respect. Platforms such as the Hush Symposium, Hush Children Symposium, held during Child's Month, give young people a voice to speak on issues affecting them, empowering them to be active participants in shaping their own realities. And we will also, in the next slide, we'll also see the Parent Month seminars that we host every year. So this Parent Month seminar, it creates a safe space for parents to share, reflect, and engage in meaningful discussion where, issues affecting their kids or affecting them is concerned. All right, next slide, please. So, we continue to strengthen partnership and collaboration through initiatives like the annual Kids Stage program. Shout out to National Museums for collaborating with us in this initiative, and the Spanish Immersion Workshop, which supports students across Jamaica preparing for CSEC examination in partnership with the Ministry of Education and the National Spanish Teachers Association. So we see that image right there with the St. Hugh's children. And yeah, that was kept at the Simon Bolivar Cultural Center. All right, so moving along. All right, so this is where we honor our legacy and achievement. Now, our program also honors the legacy and achievement of the institution. Events such as the Musgrave Award celebrates excellence in arts, literature, and science, while our students' participation in the JCDC competition, often earning medals in art, dance, music, speech and drama, and drumming, demonstrates the continued nurturing of talent and cultural pride. The division also continues to preserve and celebrate the institution's legacy through research initiatives focused on former students and cultural ambassadors. So that is my baby, right? I am currently putting together information about past students who had, who was impacted by the Junior Center and who made an impact on the world. So this exhibition is called Honoring the Past, Inspiring the Future, Embracing Our Cultural Ambassadors, and we will see more on that when my colleague is presenting. Now, this exhibition seeks to document and showcase the achievements of distinguished alumni of the Junior Centers. The project will culminate in an exhibition highlighting the lasting impact of the institution on generations of creatives and cultural practitioners, while inspiring current and future participants. Now I'll hand over to my colleague, Mrs. Banbury Hutchinson.
Thank you. You can go ahead. So once again, yes, my name is Mrs. Banbury Hutchinson. I'll just be picking up after Miss Lloyd, and I'll be sharing with you how we are engaging with the present challenges that we currently face as a division. So with all the wonderful programs that Miss Lloyd would have, spoken about that encourages our children to engage in the various cultural practices, we face our challenges. Some of them would have been mentioned earlier, but we're gonna focus on the main ones. And our main concern is the limited awareness of the programs and services that we offer at the Programs Coordinations Division. And the growing need for cultural engagement has also intensified this need that we've seen. And other concerns are a lack of resource and the need for infrastructural development. You can see more. I won't go into it in the interest of time. All right, but what I want to look at is how we are dealing with these challenges, responding to these challenges. So the theme today is Museums Uniting a Divided World, but before we can unite this divided world, we have to come together, right? All right, so to address our current infrastructural limitations, specifically at the Simon Bolivar Cultural Center, we are very big on collaboration. So we gave kudos and we big up the National Museum Jamaica earlier today, but we're gonna do it again. We recently had a collaboration with them where they allowed us to partner with them, and we did a mini exhibit on Spanish legacy. Have to pause here and big up John. John, big up yourself. All right. So, and for the other divisions, yes, when the curatorial assistant from SBCC reach out to you, respond to the email nicely, yes, let's have dialogue together. All right. So also we are trying to build public awareness and strengthen our digital presence by utilizing social media, the various social media platforms. And we do so through outreach, but once again, collaborate with us. Please to tell your friends and families about PCD and the programs and services that we offer. All right, I think I addressed the limitations I talked about, but let's look ahead. Let's look ahead. All right, so looking ahead, we are actively shaping the future of our cultural spaces. And so we have the upcoming Learn program, which is in collaboration with the NCT VET, and this will provide certified training opportunities. So we're building here, we're merging, not just teaching the students about cultural practices, but how you can generate income from it, all right? We also have integrated art into academic support programs through PEPT-focused initiatives, extending our theater arts CSEC workshop. Other initiatives include our Launch Our Concerts series, and this we use to extend our reach in community engagement as we offer access to the arts in an inclusive and welcoming environment. So, moving on. You guys would have heard about the exhibit, the research exhibit that's coming up. You can go while I'm speaking about it. So yes, this project focuses on documenting and celebrating the achievements of former students and distinguished alumni. So these are the persons who would have made some sort of impact or was impacted by the Junior Center. You might see some big names up there. Even me, I didn't know, but beautiful work is being done at the centers. All right? You can have a look at that while it goes. But by preserving these stories and achievements, the project not only honors the institution's legacy, but also inspires present and future participants to continue engaging in visual and performing arts. All right, concluding. So throughout these efforts, the Programs Coordination Division stands as a bridge connecting people, culture, and generations, while empowering individuals and strengthening communities through the transformative power of arts. The Programs Coordination Division does not simply teach the art, it safeguards cultural identity while shaping how it is experienced by our future generation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you from the Programs Coordination Division, and it was remiss of me to forget, Miss Lloyd is actually the research officer, and Mrs. Banbury Hutchinson is the curatorial assistant, as she said before. Before we move on to our last presentation, certain people who were blaming me and who like to watch goat murder videos have said that the language being spoken by Imogene Queenie Kennedy in the video, that again she blamed me for making her forget, the language is called Kikongo. So just to welcome now for our last presentation, Ms. Zoe O'Sullivan, Curatorial Assistant at National Museum, Jamaica. Please welcome her to the stage.
Good morning, everybody. I am Zoe O'Sullivan, and I am going to be representing our virtual museum today in just a minute. Now, the topic for today's discussion is legacy sugar to tourism. Now, what we know about sugarcane is that its scientific name is Saccharum officinarum. We also know that it was originated in New Guinea and brought to the island by the Spanish in the 1500s. Now, the Spanish started sugar production in Jamaica, but it was not at the extent to which the British brought it, because by the 18th century, we had over 400 sugar estates on the island. Now, the earliest documented sugar mill is in Seville. Seville is also the second oldest settlement of the Europeans. Now, sugarcane was discovered to grow best in southern parishes like St. Catherine, Clarendon, St. Elizabeth, Manchester. And the two main types of sugarcane that we have in Jamaica are bourbon, which is known for its highest yield, and Creole cane. Now, why sugarcane? Sugarcane has long been considered the gold that originated in the West Indies that colonial empires were built on. Many Caribbean islands were often referred in the past as sugar islands because of their role in contributing to the sugar dynasty. Sugarcane flourished in the Caribbean because of the tropical climate that is present in these parts. And if you look, I have a cross-section on the screen where we see the bourbon and the Creole cane there. Now, according to one account, the prices for sugar were good because supply was limited. The West Indian planters had a monopoly, and many of them became very wealthy because of the crop. Next slide, please. Now, the sugar industry in Jamaica was described as the greatest employer of labor for over 4 centuries, though not all employed by the industry did so voluntarily. The industry ballooned, and with it, so did enslavement. Many Africans were brought to the island and built an empire that they did not benefit from. Next slide, please. The enslaved were brought to the plantations, and then they were divided into groups known as gangs. The first gang, or the Great Gang, consisted of the healthiest and strongest enslaved men and women, and their work was considered the hardest. They prepared the soil, they were involved in harvesting, and they also had the most dangerous part of plantation work, which was working in the mill during harvest season. The second gang consisted of teens, the elderly, the ill, pregnant women, because there was no maternity leave at that time, and they were responsible for weeding, trashing, and cleaning the cane. The third gang, or hog meat gang, consisted of children from ages 4 to 10, and they were responsible for weeding and collecting manure. Sometimes on plantations, depending on the size, there could also be a fourth gang. Next slide, please. Now, as with many empires throughout history, not all have staying power. Jamaica faced many variables throughout the years, which eventually toppled the empire that generated wealth for its imperial powers. Emancipation, natural disasters, changes in supply and demand for the product, and the move to market Jamaica as a tourism mecca is a heavy combination for an empire to fall. Though the industry maintains a reputation for quality and flavor, offering specialty rums, sugars, and molasses, it is not the leading industry on the island today. Next slide, please. And in conclusion, Jamaica's sugar industry, established in the 16th century, was a dominant industry for centuries. In the late 20th century, after World War II, a new industry, tourism, was ushered in and continues to dominate the national economy. The most basic explanation for the pivot was that sugar stopped being profitable. In contrast, as an industry, tourism offers benefits that the sugar industry was not able to provide, such as higher earnings, it brings in foreign exchange, and it provides stronger linkages to other industries such as transportation. The sugar industry, may not have totally been abandoned by the island, but its scale and overall significance have diminished considerably. Today, mechanical harvesters replace manual labor. Sugar estates operate at a fraction of their glorious former capacity, and traditional sugar belt communities now exhibit a sense of stagnation, reflecting the profound impact of the sugar industry's decline. And if you would like more information on this particular topic, you can visit our virtual sugar exhibition known as Sugar, the Bittersweet Taste of Past and Present, which is hosted on the museum's website. I also have a brochure coming around that summarizes this entire presentation. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Zoe. Just to let everyone know, on the back of the program that I gave out, the slip of paper, there is a QR code that you can scan, and it will take you directly to our website. And on our website, you have our virtual tours. You have access to the collections database. You can see the Spanish legacy exhibition that programs mentioned that our curatorial assistant, John Shorter, collaborated with them with, and a lot more information on what National Museum Jamaica does. And just to, again, let some people know, again, we have some new people here to the IOJ, is that every year previously, we used to have an IOJ symposium. Now, as always, people leave, and the symposium kind of left with them. So we're hoping that this will spark somebody, hopefully not me, because I'm tired, to reignite it so that we can have this become again an annual event. And so if anybody has any feedback, concerns, please let me know. You can either write them down or tell me and I'll pass them on, because we want this event and future events to become bigger and better at IOJ and NMJ. As well as when you're leaving, please remember that all spaces are free entry today. So you can save your money and go KFC or Popeyes, whichever one you prefer, afterwards. The only issue is that the National Gallery is closed today, which is a standard for Mondays. But ACIJ, National Museum, Natural History, Jamaica Music Museum, as well as our satellite museums of NMJ in Spanish Town and Montego Bay, they are also open free today. So it's free entry. Again, a once in a lifetime opportunity, well, other than last Sunday, so technically not last, but I'll just say it as that. So yeah, so next year. So thank you guys, and I'll just like to welcome back again John Shorter, who will give the closing reflections. So please welcome him back on stage, everyone.
Hello again, everybody. So I hope we all enjoyed today's presentations talking about museums uniting a divided world. And I think we have a very unique opportunity here in Jamaica with the existence of this institution that is home to all of us, the IOJ. Oh, you can't hear me? Sorry. Right, so like I said, just in closing, I think we have a very unique opportunity in Jamaica here with an institution like the IOJ, which is a collection of these amazing museums and galleries and cultural spaces that really show how having these cultural epicenters can be the key to unlocking the kind of community cooperation and the knitting together of the kind of diverse demographics and culture groups that we do have here in Jamaica. So from some of our presentations, we can see that museums regularly shift the focus from colonial power structures towards national development, as exemplified by the People's Museum of Craft and Technology, formerly the Jamaica Folk Museum, that is now in the livery and stables of the Old King's House in Spanish Town. Also through the work of the National Gallery, we can see that curatorial and professional exchange and dialogue can bring together opportunities and increase communication between divided populations and formerly marginalized communities. The work of the ACIJ with its preservation of non-material culture, transforming field research into community empowerment, is also another aside, even though as the research officer, Chelsea has stated over and over again that the ACIJ isn't technically a museum, but I do believe that places like the ACIJ that do act as a cultural repository do fall under this umbrella of bridging cultural divides through this sort of anthropological and ethnographic fieldwork. Also, with the various programs outlined by the Programs and Coordinations Division, we can see that museums do have the potential to foster intergenerational learning development and also bring together, disparate and marginalized aspects of community life, bringing them forward and sharing them with a new generation. And museums actively pursue multimedia integration as represented by the various virtual exhibitions by NMJ, as well as the work by Liberty Hall, shows us how museums can carry forward this activity of uniting sorry, I don't know why I'm tripping over myself, of uniting Jamaica's cultural landscape, a country that has as its motto, out of many one people, that has a very rich culture and is home to a very diverse demographic population, that the IOJ positions itself, if it positions itself correctly, has the opportunity to really be the sort of interlocutor or the sort of epicenter that can actually, carry this, that can sort of carry the why am I tripping with my words? Like it's sort of carry forward the mandate of the Institute, which is to preserve, promote, and protect Jamaican culture. Really sorry, I guess I'm more tired than I thought I was. Happy Museum Day, everybody, and thanks so much for tuning in for this symposium. And I think that's it for me.
Thanks, John.
Oh, God.
No, mine's okay. Before I welcome Miss Stephanie Rose to the stage, Dr. Nadine Booth-Gooden has just informed me that even though the National Gallery is closed today because they're taking down an exhibition, they have graciously extended free entry for tomorrow. So those who are here and who are online, you are welcome to have the free entry to the National Gallery tomorrow. And also, thank you for our online followers. And I'd like to especially thank Culture Boss, who I think is here and online, for engaging with us. And so please, everyone, welcome Ms. Stephanie Rose to the stage, Assistant Outreach Officer.
Thank you, Alexis. It has been a great morning. I think when I leave this room, I'm leaving with a wealth of information. I learned so much this morning, didn't you? Yes. Very much so. Before I begin my thank you, I just want to highlight a few themes that I think I should talk about them. Well, not talk about them, but just, kind of mention them. A few themes that came out of this symposium. We talked about fostering inclusion, building connections across communities and generations, outreach programs, which I think is a very important part of museums' activities, collaboration, the importance of participation, cultural exchange, and funding, which is one of the biggest issues that we have here. I just want to talk a little bit about Stafford Brown's presentation. I think it was a wonderful presentation. And he spoke about the idea of cultural shift that is going on in museums. And he mentioned about digitalizing our cultural museum spaces. And he also talked about location, trying to find enough space to talk about our culture. And we all know that's an issue. And with that said, talking about digitalizing our cultural spaces and our exhibitions, I just want to say that Miss Dr. Booth from the National Gallery, the executive director of the director of the National Gallery, she was actually on Smile Jamaica. Was it last week, Dr. Booth? Yes, last week. She was talking about the importance of digitalizing our exhibition spaces to increase access for persons who don't have access to museums, and you know what I'm talking about. And she also wrote an issue in the Observer on May 4th. It was in the Observer, and the article, it's the title of the article. It says what museums and galleries need to survive in 2026 and beyond. It was an interesting article, and I think if you have the Observer, if you can go online, I think you should read it. And as I go along, I'd like to thank all our directors from all the divisions. Some of them were here and they left. I know I don't want to get into it because Alexis had already acknowledged a few of them, but I see Jacqueline Boucher here from the Programs Division, Tracy. I know Mrs. Creed Nelson was here, Dr. Kurt Nelson from ACIJ, Dr. Davies, she was here. Thank you all for coming. And of course, Dr. Greenland from National Museum Jamaica, our wonderful director, is here with us as well. And as I continue, I would just like to start off with a quote. I won't be long. It says, "Museums are bridges across cultural, social, and geopolitical divides. They offer welcoming spaces where diverse voices can be heard and mutual understanding is fostered." I think this quote summarizes the mission of International Museum Day, spearheaded by the International Council of Museums, ICOM, that is celebrated annually right across the world as museums continue to preserve heritage and bring everyone across different cultures to have dialogue learn about different cultures and share their own stories. And I think it's wonderful, a great feeling that National Museum Jamaica has united with other museums across the world, playing its role in recognizing and supporting this year's theme. And of course, as I carry on, I'd like to just thank the members of public who are here. I see Peter Espute. Alexis already mentioned you. I remember growing up, I'm an avid fan of your articles. Thank you for coming. And on that note, I would like to extend a warm, big thanks to the presenters here this morning. Your presentations were very much in depth, I think. Another round of applause for all our presenters this morning. And I can attest that they were well researched, certainly fitting to this year's theme, Museums Uniting a Divided World. I personally enjoyed Mr. John Shorter's presentation. He spoke about, you know, tours at the museums. I think it's very important that we highlight that because we're dealing with the public. Thank you again for your time and your effort. Special thanks to the audience again, all the members of staff of the IOJ and National Museum Jamaica. Shout out with thanks to the PR department for doing all the levels of media correspondences, our graphic designer and photographer today, Mr. Roel Cook, and of course, Jeff Clark, our IT specialist in the back there. Hi, Jeff. Your work is always appreciated. And of course, our education officer, Miss Alexis Matt-David. See her there? Give her a round of applause. She planned this symposium. And as well as Miss Shay Walker, the programs manager. I don't know if she's still here. Thank you, Shay. I know we give you a lot of trouble, but thanks. And it's been a great morning. I don't know, Alexis, did the representatives from Bob Marley Museum, are they here? Oh, they're here. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. I know you maybe had other things to do, but you found time to come here this morning. It's been a great morning. Thank you, and we're going to do this again next year. Thank you all. Over to Alexis.
Well, guys, we're done. Thanks for coming. And we, as we all know, IOJ well broke, but the most at least we could do before you hopefully take participation in the free entry is we have some water and juice on the outside, at least to cool down your throat before you walk around and get in all your steps and your eye watch them and whatever today. So again, thanks for coming, guys, and that's it. And thanks everyone online.